many years ago, on this very road, I won my first important race. Perhaps the most important of my life, because this was the one which convinced me I could drive and which took me out of the number of unknowns. The race was called the International Grand Premio of the North and was tough, certainly the longest and stiffest which had ever been thought up. 6,000 miles in 13 stages from Buenos Aires to Lima and back again on a beaten track made up of dust and mud. 1,000-mile stages on mountain roads with an altitude of nearly 15,000 feet, where there wasn't enough oxygen for the engines, let alone ourselves. Stages across salt deserts where the temperature rose to 40 degrees centigrade, with not enough water for the radiator and just a few coca leaves to chew to keep ourselves awake during the night. And the roads were cut along the very edge of 2,000-foot precipices.
The great champion Oscar Galvez, Fangio writes, who won this race the year before, drove a Ford, the car which nearly always won in those days. I had to be content with a Chevrolet, much more fragile and much less experienced. In order to get her, I had to organize a lottery. And then, to make the money to pay for the race, I made a collection among all my friends where I lived. I still have the list at home of those who donated 1,000 pesos, those who gave 100 or even 10, according to their means. The poorest gave only a peso, but everyone gave something. My Chevrolet couldn't do more than 95 an hour then. I covered the first stage at an average of 80. The second and third were won by Galvez, who took the lead. Then I gave my engine her head, and despite the chassis cracking up and a leak in the radiator, I won 4 out of the 13 stages, and in another 4, I came second or third. In the end, I won the actual race an hour ahead of the others with an average of 50. Looking back on the conditions of the road, and if they're like this today, imagine what they were like 30 years ago. I can hardly believe it possible. But I simply had to win, not only for myself, but for the sake of all those friends who helped me. I had to pay all I owed for the car. I had to convince my father that I wasn't just crazy. I had to show my girlfriends what metal I was made of. In short, I had to beat Galvez and become somebody.
Then things got better. But everything began here, in this old Chevrolet which is still running, on these old roads which are still the same. Everything began in these mountains and in these valleys of my beautiful, wonderful Argentina, where Fangio began, and where I hope one day Fangio will end.